Ford Motor sales rose less than analysts expected in July, while GM sales beat analyst estimates, rising 7.6%. For more on today's auto sales, let's bring in Edmunds.com auto analyst Jessica Caldwell. Edmunds.com has been named the top auto website by both Forbes and J.D. Power. And Jessica joins us from Santa Monica, California. Jessica, welcome back to Bottom Line. Pleasure to have you back.
Thanks for having me back.
What are today's auto numbers telling us?
Well, definitely if you look at these auto numbers on an annualized basis versus last month and the month before, we're seeing an improvement. We're probably looking at a SAAR of over 12 million units, which, beat a lot of people's expectations. And I think in the state of the, where the market is right now with all the uncertainty out there and the headwinds of high pricing and inventory, it's not necessarily a bad result.
Given what happened in Japan back in March, that earthquake and tsunami, would the numbers have been a little bit better if not for that disruption?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is really, it had created a lot of issues in the past few months when you look at auto sales. And certainly I think it adds to the disappointment when you see the numbers, because if you think back to February when things were definitely on an upswing, where we thought we'd be in July is a lot different than where we are today. But I mean, that was a huge factor as it, greatly affected amongst the biggest automakers in the country. You
mentioned some of the macroeconomic drivers here. How uneasy is the auto industry about a U.S. economic recovery?
I mean, it's very, uneasy if you look at everything out there with all the reports of, unemployment, of course, housing, and now, all the talks over the past few weeks of debt ceiling. I mean, the American consumer is very fragile, where it's been over the past 3 years. So I think any negativity that's out there in the market is going to scare consumers off. And right now, in the state of recovery, the automakers don't want that or need that.
Jessica, even with today's numbers, we did see that July wasn't a total loss. The sales of compact cars were up as well, and fuel-efficient SUVs, they also showed a pretty good pop. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, I think a combination of a few things. I mean, obviously, gas prices are not as high today as they were back in May, but still, they're at an elevated point. And I think whenever that happens, you're going to see interest in those segments. So as the market continues, I would expect to see those numbers still be high. And you combine that with new products in those segments, vehicles like the Chevy Cruze, which has done very well, Ford Focus, again, very well. So there's a lot of interest from the product side, and then also people worried about the prices at the pump.
How did weakness in construction hurt the sales of some of the bigger vehicles?
Well, I think anytime you have weakness in construction, you look at the big trucks, the Ford F-150s and the Chevy Silverados. I mean, that's going to greatly affect the sales of those. So as you see construction going back, we'd expect to see sales for those vehicles increase. And I think that's so important for automakers because the profitability of those trucks is, really adds a lot to the bottom line.
Well, the buyers are usually used to summertime discounts, but maybe not so much this summer. Is that also partly to be explained by what's going on with the overall economy?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what segments you're looking at. Again, like we had mentioned, sales for compact cars and small SUVs are pretty hot. So we wouldn't expect to see the best deals on those vehicles because there's such high demand. But on the other side of the spectrum, you look at large vehicles, deals out there on those, and luxury vehicles. Luxury sales reported a pretty high number this month, and I think a lot of that was due to generous incentives. So again, it depends where you're in the market right now.
Jessica, in our last minute, some of those deep discounts that we saw earlier this year, are we going to see those continue towards the end of the year, or are some of the automakers going to decide, at least as we head towards the fall and towards the winter, that they're going to have to recoup some of that money that they may have given up by having those deals?
Well, I think it really is going to come down to inventory. I mean, if we can see inventory numbers improve from Toyota and Honda, which they haven't given us a necessary indication that it's going to get great, I really think that's the thing that's going to hold back pricing, because unless we see inventory increase, there's no reason to offer great deals. So, it really depends on that.
Are we going to have a glut of inventory because of these lagging consumer indicators we're seeing? Again, the savings rate at 5.4%. A lot of people are sitting on their money because they're unsure how this economy is going to turn out, whether or not they're going to have their jobs between now and the end of the year, and they don't want to purchase that big ticket item.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I mean, there's a lot of pent-up demand. I know we've heard that for quite some time now, but that continues to grow as people hold back. But again, I think what is the inventory situation going to look like? Because if the automakers entice people with great deals because there is a surplus of inventory, then that could be enough to bring consumers back in the marketplace. But that said, consumers do look hesitant out there.
Jessica Caldwell of Edmunds.com joining us from Santa Monica, California. Jessica, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you.